The story opens with an engaging scene that emphasizes this isn't just another formal royal visit, but a genuine connection between royalty and real community work that makes a difference. In the heart of East London, where tower blocks cast long shadows over bustling markets and the aroma of spices from around the world fills the air, something extraordinary was about to unfold. It wasn't just another royal visit with formal handshakes and polite conversations. This was the day when two of Britain's most prominent figures would step into the real world of community spirit, discovering stories that would touch their hearts and inspire a nation. The morning sun painted the London skyline in golden hues as preparations began in earnest across several community centres in Tower Hamlets. Volunteers who had worked tirelessly for years in obscurity suddenly found themselves at the centre of royal attention. But this wasn't about ceremony or protocol. This was about genuine connection, authentic stories, and the kind of human moments that remind us why community work matters so deeply. The black Bentley moved slowly through the narrow streets of Whitechapel, its polished surface reflecting the diverse faces that lined the pavements. Inside, King Charles adjusted his tie one final time, not out of nervousness, but with the quiet anticipation of someone who understood that today would be different. Beside him, Queen Camilla reviewed her notes about the organizations they would visit, but her real preparation had been done through years of championing causes close to her heart. Their first destination was the Shadwell Community Centre, a modest building that had served as a lifeline for local families for over 3 decades. The center's weathered brick facade told stories of resilience, of countless individuals who had walked through its doors seeking help, hope, and human connection. As the royal convoy approached, Margaret Thompson, the center's director, took a deep breath. She had run this place with unwavering dedication since 1995, watching it transform from a small local initiative into a vital hub that touched hundreds of lives each month. Margaret had seen it all during her tenure. She had witnessed families arrive with nothing but the clothes on their backs, seeking refuge from domestic violence or economic hardship. She had watched children grow from shy, uncertain youngsters into confident young adults who returned as volunteers. She had celebrated countless victories, both small and large, and had held the hands of community members during their darkest moments. Today, she would share these stories with people who could amplify their impact far beyond the borders of East London. The royal couple stepped out of their vehicle to genuine warmth from the gathered crowd. There were no barriers here, no formal distance between royalty and residents. Children pressed forward with handmade drawings, elderly residents offered shy smiles, and teenagers who might normally show indifference found themselves genuinely curious about these visitors who had chosen to come to their neighborhood. Inside the community center, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. The main hall had been transformed, not with expensive decorations, but with displays showcasing the real work being done every day. Photographs lined the walls, each one telling a story of transformation, resilience, and hope. There was Sarah, a single mother of 3 who had arrived at the center 2 years ago, homeless and desperate. Now she ran the center's job training program. There was Ahmed, a former refugee who had learned English through the center's classes and now worked as a translator for newly arrived families. Queen Camilla moved through the displays with genuine interest, stopping to read each story carefully. She asked detailed questions about the programs, the challenges faced, and the successes celebrated. Her engagement was not performative but authentic, drawing on her years of experience with similar organizations across the country. She understood the language of community work, the delicate balance between offering support and empowering independence. King Charles found himself in deep conversation with a group of volunteers who ran the center's environmental program. They had transformed a vacant lot behind the building into a thriving community garden, complete with raised beds, a greenhouse, and areas for children to learn about sustainable growing. The king's passion for environmental causes was well known, but here he encountered grassroots activism that was making a tangible difference in people's daily lives. "Your Majesty," said David Chen, a retired teacher who coordinated the garden project, "we started with nothing but determination and a few packets of seeds donated by local residents. Now we supply fresh vegetables to 12 families every week, and we've taught over 50 children how to grow their own food." The king's eyes lit up as he examined the carefully tended plots, each one representing hours of volunteer labor and community cooperation. The royal visit to the children's area proved particularly moving. Here, Queen Camilla encountered the after-school program that had become a sanctuary for young people whose parents worked multiple jobs or faced other challenges. The program provided not just supervision, but mentorship, tutoring, and creative outlets that helped children discover their potential. She sat with a group of 8-year-olds who were working on an art project, their faces serious with concentration as they painted pictures of their dreams for the future. "I want to be a doctor," announced Fatima, a bright-eyed girl whose family had arrived from Somalia 3 years earlier. "Miss Jennifer says I'm really good at science." Jennifer Martinez, the program coordinator, beamed with pride as she explained how Fatima had overcome significant language barriers to excel in her studies. The Queen listened intently, understanding that behind this simple interaction lay months of dedicated support, patience, and belief in a child's potential. The Elderly Residence Program presented another facet of the center's work. King Charles spent considerable time with a group of seniors who had found new purpose through the center's intergenerational initiatives. They worked with younger volunteers on various projects, from teaching traditional crafts to sharing oral histories of the neighborhood's evolution over the decades. Frank Morrison, an 82-year-old former dockworker, regaled the king with stories of how the area had changed since his childhood, painting a vivid picture of community resilience through economic ups and downs. "We've seen this neighborhood transform many times," Frank explained, his weathered hands gesturing toward the windows that looked out onto busy Commercial Road. "But, the spirit of looking out for each other, that's never changed. This center, it's not just about programs and services. It's about keeping that spirit alive for the next generation." As the morning progressed, both royal visitors became increasingly aware that they were witnessing something special. This wasn't charity in the traditional sense, where help flows in one direction. Instead, they observed a complex ecosystem of mutual support, where former clients became volunteers, where different generations learned from each other, and where cultural diversity was celebrated as a strength rather than managed as a challenge. The center's approach to addressing food insecurity particularly impressed Queen Camilla. Rather than simply distributing donations, they had created a community kitchen where residents could learn cooking skills while preparing meals together. The program addressed nutrition, social isolation, and skill development simultaneously. She joined a cooking class where recent immigrants were learning to prepare traditional British dishes while sharing recipes from their own cultures with other participants. "Food brings people together," explained Maria Santos, who had fled domestic violence 2 years earlier and now helped coordinate the program. "When we cook together, we share more than just recipes. We share stories, we share hope, and we create friendships that help all of us feel less alone." The Queen nodded knowingly, recognizing the profound wisdom in this simple observation. The job training and employment support programs revealed another layer of the center's comprehensive approach. Rather than offering generic resume workshops, they had developed partnerships with local employers and identified specific skill gaps in the community. Their programs ranged from basic digital literacy to specialized training in healthcare support, retail management, and construction trades. The success stories were compelling, with an 85% job placement rate for program graduates. King Charles met with several program graduates who had returned as mentors for new participants. Their stories illustrated not just individual transformation, but the creation of sustainable support networks that continue to strengthen the community over time. One graduate, Patricia Williams, had completed the healthcare training program and now worked as a healthcare assistant while studying part-time for her nursing qualification. She returned to the center every week to tutor new students and provide encouragement during challenging moments in their training. The afternoon brought a powerful example of the center's crisis intervention capabilities. The royal couple learned about the Domestic Violence Support Program, which operated with discretion and sensitivity to protect vulnerable individuals while providing comprehensive assistance. They met with counselors and advocates who explained how they coordinated with police, legal services, housing authorities, and other agencies to ensure that people escaping dangerous situations received holistic support. The program's success was measured not just in numbers, but in the renewed confidence visible in survivors who had rebuilt their lives. Several women who had been helped by the program were present, sharing their experiences with a courage that spoke volumes about their personal growth and the quality of support they had received. Their stories were difficult to hear but impossible to forget, illustrating both human resilience and the critical importance of accessible community resources. As the day continued, patterns emerged that distinguished this community center from purely service-oriented organizations. Everything was designed to build capacity rather than create dependency. Clients became volunteers, volunteers developed into leaders, and leaders often moved on to create new initiatives elsewhere while maintaining connections to their original community. This approach created expanding networks of support that reached far beyond the center's physical boundaries. The Youth Mentorship Program exemplified this philosophy. Teenagers who had been helped through difficult periods returned to support younger children facing similar challenges. The peer-to-peer support proved incredibly effective, as young people often responded better to guidance from someone who had walked a similar path rather than from adults whose experiences felt too distant to be relevant. King Charles spent considerable time with Marcus Johnson, a 17-year-old who had been involved with the center since age 12. Marcus had initially come to the after-school program because his mother worked evening shifts and needed safe supervision for her son. Over the years, he had participated in tutoring, sports programs, leadership development, and community service projects. Now he helped coordinate activities for younger children while preparing for university applications. "This place taught me that I could be more than my circumstances," Marcus explained with a maturity that belied his age. "When I was younger, I thought success meant leaving this neighborhood behind. Now I understand that real success means developing the skills and knowledge to contribute positively wherever you are." His words resonated deeply with the king, who had spent decades grappling with questions of service, duty, and the responsibility that comes with privilege. The center's approach to celebrating cultural diversity while building community cohesion impressed both royal visitors. Rather than treating multiculturalism as a challenge to be managed, they had created programs that encouraged cross-cultural learning and friendship. The annual International Food Festival, community language classes, and cultural exchange programs had helped forge connections between families from Bangladesh, Somalia, Poland, Jamaica, and many other countries. These initiatives had practical benefits beyond their social value. Language exchanges helped recent immigrants improve their English while allowing British-born residents to learn new languages. Cultural celebrations introduced families to traditions they might never have encountered otherwise, building understanding and appreciation across different communities. The result was a neighborhood where diversity was genuinely celebrated rather than merely tolerated. As the afternoon wore on, both King Charles and Queen Camilla found themselves deeply moved by the stories they encountered. These weren't abstract policy discussions or statistics about social programs. These were real people whose lives had been fundamentally changed through the simple but powerful act of community members caring for each other. The center served as a catalyst and coordinator, but the real magic happened in the relationships formed between neighbors who discovered they had more in common than they had initially imagined. The royal convoy moved through the bustling streets toward their second destination, the East London Youth Empowerment Hub, housed in a converted Victorian warehouse that stood as a testament to creative repurposing. The building's red brick exterior had been enhanced with colorful murals created by local young artists, each painting telling stories of aspiration, struggle, and triumph. As the vehicles approached, Queen Camilla noticed how the artwork seemed to pulse with life, reflecting the energy of a community determined to create opportunities for its next generation. Inside the hub, the atmosphere crackled with creative energy. Unlike the warm, familial feeling of the community center, this space buzzed with the intensity of young people pursuing their passions. Music studios hummed with activity, computer labs filled with teenagers learning coding and digital design, and workshop spaces where young entrepreneurs developed business ideas that could transform their communities. The conversion from industrial space to youth center had been a community-led project, with local contractors donating time and materials while young people contributed their labor and creative vision. The hub's director, James Mitchell, had grown up in these same streets 20 years earlier. His journey from struggling student to youth advocate embodied the transformative power of community investment. James had left school at 16 with few prospects, but a chance encounter with a youth worker had changed his trajectory. Now he led an organization that reached over 800 young people annually, providing everything from basic literacy support to advanced technical training that prepared teenagers for emerging industries. Your Majesties, James began as he welcomed the royal couple. What you'll see today isn't just about keeping young people off the streets, though that's important. It's about helping them discover talents they didn't know they had and giving them the tools to pursue dreams they might never have imagined possible. His words carried the weight of personal experience, and both visitors sensed they were about to encounter something extraordinary. The music program immediately captured their attention. In soundproof studios, teenagers from diverse backgrounds collaborated on original compositions that blended grime, Afrobeat, electronic music, and traditional folk influences. The resulting sound was distinctly London, reflecting the city's multicultural character while addressing issues relevant to young people's daily lives. Queen Camilla found herself drawn into conversations with aspiring musicians who spoke passionately about using their art to address social issues and build bridges between communities. Aaliyah Okafor, a 16-year-old songwriter, performed an original piece that addressed her experience as a second-generation immigrant navigating between her Nigerian heritage and British identity. Her lyrics were sophisticated and deeply personal, touching on themes of belonging, cultural pride, and the challenges of growing up in a rapidly gentrifying neighborhood. The Queen listened with evident emotion, recognizing the artistic skill and emotional intelligence required to transform personal struggle into universal themes. Music gave me a voice when I didn't know how to speak about difficult things, Aaliyah explained after her performance. Through songwriting, I learned that my experiences aren't just mine. Other young people face similar challenges, and when we share our stories through music, we help each other feel less alone. Her words highlighted the therapeutic and community-building aspects of creative expression that the Hub fostered among its participants. The Technology Center presented a different but equally impressive facet of the Hub's work. Young people who had grown up with smartphones and social media were being introduced to the underlying technologies that powered their daily experiences. Coding classes, web design workshops, and digital marketing training provided pathways into growing technology sectors while addressing the digital divide that often excluded young people from disadvantaged backgrounds from tech careers. King Charles spent considerable time with Dmitry Kowalski, a 17-year-old whose family had immigrated from Poland when he was 8. Dmitry had discovered his passion for programming through the Hub's computer classes and now led coding workshops for younger children while developing a mobile app designed to connect elderly residents with volunteer services in their neighborhood. His project demonstrated how technical skills could be applied to address real community needs. "I used to think technology was something that happened to us," Dmitry explained as he demonstrated his app's functionality. "Through the programs here, I learned that we can be creators, not just consumers. My app is still in development, but I've already had interest from 3 local councils who want to pilot it in their areas." The king was impressed not just by the technical achievement, but by Dmitry's vision of technology as a tool for social good. The entrepreneurship program revealed another dimension of the Hub's comprehensive approach to youth development. Rather than focusing solely on traditional employment preparation, they encouraged young people to identify problems in their communities and develop business solutions. The program provided mentorship, basic business training, and small grants that enabled teenagers to test their ideas in real market conditions. Maya Patel, an 18-year-old who had graduated from the program the previous year, returned to share her success story. She had identified a gap in healthy, affordable meal options for busy families in her neighborhood and launched a meal preparation service that employed other young people while addressing local food access issues. Her business had grown from serving 5 families to over 50, and she was preparing to expand into catering for community events. "The program taught me that having a good idea isn't enough," Maya explained to an attentive Queen Camilla. "You need to understand your customers, manage your finances, and build systems that can grow. But, most importantly, you need to stay connected to the community you're trying to serve." Her business model prioritized local hiring and sourcing, creating a multiplier effect that benefited the broader neighborhood economy. The Hub's approach to addressing educational challenges particularly impressed both royal visitors. Rather than competing with formal education, they supplemented it with programs that addressed gaps and provided alternative pathways for different learning styles. Their tutoring programs were peer-led, with older students helping younger ones while developing their own leadership and teaching skills. The approach created a culture where academic achievement was celebrated and supported by peers rather than viewed with suspicion. The literacy program worked with teenagers who had struggled in traditional classroom settings, using creative writing, spoken word poetry, and digital storytelling to rebuild confidence and skills. Many participants discovered they were intelligent and creative, but had been failed by educational approaches that didn't match their learning styles. The program's success was measured not just in improved test scores, but in renewed enthusiasm for learning and higher educational aspirations. King Charles engaged in lengthy conversation with Robert Thompson, a 19-year-old who had been written off by his school as a behavioral problem. Through the Hub's alternative education program, Robert had discovered his talent for creative writing and developed into a confident public speaker who now facilitated workshops for younger students facing similar challenges. His transformation illustrated the program's philosophy that behavioral issues often reflected unmet educational needs rather than fundamental character flaws. "I thought I was stupid," Robert shared with characteristic honesty. "Teachers kept telling me to sit still, be quiet, and memorize information that didn't seem relevant to my life. Here, I learned that intelligence comes in many forms and that my energy and creativity were assets, not problems. Now I help other kids realize that their differences might actually be their strengths." The sports and fitness programs provided another avenue for personal development and community building. Rather than focusing solely on competitive athletics, they used sports as a vehicle for teaching life skills, building confidence, and creating positive peer relationships. The boxing program, led by former professional fighter turned youth mentor Carl Washington, attracted teenagers who might have been drawn to street conflicts and channeled their energy into disciplined training and competition. Carl's own story resonated powerfully with program participants. He had grown up in similar circumstances, using boxing as an escape from neighborhood pressures and eventually competing at national levels before injury ended his professional career. His transition to youth work had been natural, as he understood the challenges facing young people in the area and could speak to them with authentic credibility. "Boxing teaches you more than just how to fight," Carl explained to the King as they watched teenagers practicing their techniques. "It teaches discipline, respect, and how to handle pressure. More importantly, it shows young people that they can overcome obstacles through hard work and determination. These lessons apply whether you're in the ring or in the classroom or at a job interview." The Girls' Empowerment Program addressed specific challenges facing young women in the community, from body image pressures to career limitations to safety concerns. The program combined practical skill building with confidence development and peer support networks. Participants learned everything from financial literacy to self-defense while discussing topics like healthy relationships, educational opportunities, and career planning. Queen Camilla spent considerable time with this program, recognizing parallels to her own advocacy work around domestic violence prevention and women's empowerment. She was particularly impressed by the peer mentorship model, where older participants guided younger ones while developing their own leadership capabilities. The program created a pipeline of confident young women who supported each other's aspirations and challenged limiting stereotypes about what girls from their neighborhoods could achieve. Zara Ahmed, a 17-year-old program participant, had used skills learned through the Hub to start a small business creating and selling hijabs with empowering messages embroidered in Arabic and English. Her designs celebrated her Muslim identity while addressing mainstream fashion markets, and she had begun selling through online platforms with support from the entrepreneurship program. Her success demonstrated how the Hub's different programs reinforced each other to create comprehensive support for young people's ambitions. "The program taught me that being proud of my culture and my faith doesn't limit my opportunities," Zara explained as she showed the Queen samples of her work. "Instead, my unique perspective and experiences give me advantages in creating products that speak to customers who haven't been well-served by traditional fashion companies." The mental health and well-being support services provided crucial infrastructure that enabled all other programs to succeed. The Hub recognized that young people facing trauma, anxiety, depression, or other mental health challenges couldn't fully benefit from educational or employment programs without appropriate support. Their approach integrated counseling with creative therapies, peer support groups, and family engagement programs. The mental health team worked closely with local NHS services while providing immediate, accessible support that bridged gaps in formal healthcare provision. Many young people preferred receiving help in the familiar, non-clinical environment of the Hub rather than traditional medical settings. The integration of mental health support with other programs helped reduce stigma while ensuring that participants received holistic assistance. Dr. Sarah Williams, the Hub's counseling coordinator, explained their trauma-informed approach to both royal visitors. Rather than viewing behavioral problems or academic struggles as character flaws, all staff were trained to recognize how adverse childhood experiences might affect young people's ability to engage with programs. This understanding led to more patient, flexible approaches that met individuals where they were rather than where programs thought they should be. The community service program connected young people with local organizations while developing their civic engagement and leadership skills. Participants volunteered with elderly residents, environmental cleanup projects, local food banks, and community events while learning about social issues and developing empathy for different population groups. The program created positive visibility for teenagers in the neighborhood while building bridges between generations. Many participants discovered career interests through their volunteer work, leading them to pursue relevant training or education. Others developed lasting commitments to community service that continued long after their formal involvement with the Hub ended. The program demonstrated how young people could be assets to their communities rather than problems to be managed, challenging negative stereotypes while building positive relationships with adult neighbors. As the afternoon progressed, both King Charles and Queen Camilla recognized that the Hub represented more than just youth programming. It embodied a comprehensive community development approach that viewed young people as partners in neighborhood improvement rather than passive recipients of services. The Hub's success stemmed from its ability to combine high expectations with flexible support, challenging participants to pursue ambitious goals while providing the resources and encouragement needed to achieve them. The peer leadership structure particularly impressed both visitors. Rather than relying solely on adult staff, the Hub created pathways for successful participants to become mentors, workshop leaders, and program coordinators. This approach ensured that programming remained relevant to young people's experiences while creating career development opportunities for emerging leaders. The peer leadership model also provided powerful examples of success that were more credible to new participants than adult testimonials might have been. The Hub's financial sustainability model demonstrated innovative thinking about funding community programs. Rather than relying entirely on grants or government funding, they had developed social enterprises that generated revenue while providing training opportunities for participants. Their recording studio rented time to local musicians, their catering service supplied community events, and their graphic design workshop accepted commercial projects that funded equipment and materials for training programs. This approach provided several benefits beyond financial sustainability. Participants gained real-world experience working with paying customers, learned about business operations, and developed professional networks that could lead to future opportunities. The social enterprises also increased the Hub's visibility in the broader community while demonstrating the capabilities of young people who might otherwise be overlooked by potential employers or collaborators. As evening approached, both royal visitors found themselves profoundly moved by what they had witnessed. The Youth Hub had shown them a model of community investment that produced measurable outcomes while honoring the dignity and potential of every young person who walked through its doors. The transformation visible in participants wasn't just about acquiring skills or avoiding problems, but about developing the confidence and vision needed to become positive forces in their communities and beyond. The final destination of the royal visit stood at the intersection where East London's industrial past met its evolving future. The Community Wellness and Integration Centre occupied a former textile factory that had been transformed through collaborative effort between local residents, immigrant communities, and urban regeneration specialists. The building's restoration had preserved its Victorian character while incorporating modern accessibility features and energy-efficient systems that reflected the community's commitment to environmental sustainability. Dr. Amara Hassan, the center's founding director, waited at the entrance with barely contained excitement. As a former refugee from Somalia who had arrived in London 15 years earlier with her 2 young children and limited English skills, she embodied the transformative journey that the center facilitated for hundreds of individuals annually. Her path from struggling newcomer to respected community leader illustrated the remarkable potential that emerged when people received appropriate support during vulnerable transitions. The center's origin story began 5 years earlier when Dr. Hassan, then working as a community health advocate, recognized that existing services were failing to address the complex, interconnected challenges facing newly arrived immigrants and long-term residents experiencing economic displacement. Traditional approaches treated housing, employment, healthcare, education, and social integration as separate issues, requiring people to navigate multiple bureaucracies while managing language barriers and cultural adjustment challenges. Your Majesties, Dr. Hassan began as she welcomed King Charles and Queen Camilla. What we've created here represents a different philosophy about how communities can support human flourishing. Instead of asking people to fit into existing systems, we've designed systems that adapt to people's actual circumstances and needs. Her words carried the authority of someone who had experienced both sides of the support equation, first as a recipient and, later as a provider of community services. The medical clinic represented the center's most innovative programming. Rather than operating as a traditional healthcare facility, it functioned as a community health hub that addressed social determinants of health alongside medical concerns. The clinical team included doctors, nurses, mental health counselors, and community health workers who spoke multiple languages and understood the cultural factors that influenced health behaviors and healthcare access. Queen Camilla spent considerable time with Dr. Maria Rodriguez, a GP who had left a comfortable suburban practice to work at the center. Dr. Rodriguez explained how medical appointments often revealed underlying issues related to housing conditions, food insecurity, domestic violence, or immigration status anxiety that significantly impacted patients' health outcomes. The center's integrated approach allowed immediate connection to relevant support services rather than referring patients to separate organizations that might not understand their cultural context or complex circumstances. Traditional medicine treats symptoms, Dr. Rodriguez explained as she showed the Queen through examination rooms that doubled as consultation spaces for social services. Here, we treat whole people within their family and community contexts. When a patient presents with chronic headaches, we explore whether they're related to stress about immigration paperwork, overcrowded housing conditions, or workplace exploitation. Then, we can address root causes rather than just managing symptoms. The innovative approach produced remarkable results. Patient satisfaction ratings exceeded national averages, emergency room visits among registered patients decreased by 40%, and chronic disease management improved significantly. More importantly, patients reported feeling heard and respected in ways they hadn't experienced in other healthcare settings. The clinic's success had attracted attention from healthcare policy researchers and had been featured in medical journals as a model for culturally responsive primary care. The legal aid and immigration services provided another crucial component of the center's comprehensive approach. Many community members faced complex legal challenges related to immigration status, employment rights, housing disputes, or family law issues. Traditional legal services were often inaccessible due to cost, language barriers, or cultural misunderstandings. The center's legal team provided free consultations and representation while educating community members about their rights and responsibilities. Barrister Jennifer Chang had taken a significant pay cut to join the center's legal team, motivated by her belief that access to justice shouldn't depend on economic status or immigration status. She explained to King Charles how legal problems often interconnected with other challenges facing community members, making integrated service delivery essential for effective problem solving. A family facing eviction might also be dealing with workplace discrimination and immigration paperwork delays, Jennifer explained as they toured the legal consultation rooms. Traditional legal aid treats each issue separately, but families experience them simultaneously. Our approach allows us to develop comprehensive strategies that address multiple challenges while building clients' understanding of their legal rights in various contexts. The center's educational programming addressed gaps in formal education systems while respecting diverse learning traditions and cultural values. Adult education classes ranged from basic literacy and numeracy to university preparation courses, all delivered in multilingual environments that honored students' existing knowledge and experiences. The programming recognized that many immigrants arrived with significant educational credentials that weren't recognized in British systems, leading to underemployment and wasted human potential. The English language classes particularly impressed both royal visitors. Rather than using generic curriculum materials, instructors developed lessons around practical situations that students encountered in their daily lives. Students practiced English while learning about healthcare navigation, employment rights, educational opportunities for their children, and civic participation. This approach accelerated language acquisition while building practical life skills and cultural knowledge. Fatima al-Rashid, an instructor who had arrived from Syria 3 years earlier as a refugee, demonstrated the peer education model that made the language classes so effective. Despite having limited formal teaching credentials, her lived experience of language learning and cultural adjustment made her incredibly effective at helping newer arrivals navigate similar challenges. Her classes consistently showed higher retention and satisfaction rates than traditional ESL programs. When I teach English, I'm not just teaching grammar and vocabulary, Fatima explained to Queen Camilla as her intermediate class practiced role-playing job interview scenarios. I'm teaching survival skills, confidence, and hope. My students see that if I could learn English and find meaningful work, they can too. Sometimes the most important lesson is believing in your own potential. The childcare and early childhood education programs addressed critical needs that often prevented parents from accessing other services or pursuing educational and employment opportunities. The center's nursery operated with longer hours and more flexible scheduling than traditional childcare providers, recognizing that many parents worked irregular hours in service industries or attended classes and appointments at various times throughout the week. The early childhood curriculum incorporated multicultural elements that honored children's home languages and cultural traditions while preparing them for British educational systems. Children learned songs and stories from around the world, celebrated diverse holidays and traditions, and developed pride in their multicultural identities. This approach helped children develop strong cultural foundations while building bridges across different communities represented in the program. King Charles spent considerable time observing a group of 4-year-olds who were engaged in a cooking activity that incorporated recipes from Bangladesh, Nigeria, and Britain. The children worked together to prepare simple dishes while learning about measurement, following instructions, and cultural traditions. Their natural curiosity about different foods and customs demonstrated how multicultural learning could happen organically when facilitated by skilled educators. The employment services took a holistic approach to career development that addressed both practical barriers to employment and systemic factors that limited opportunities for community members. Rather than focusing solely on job placement, the program provided career counseling, skills training, professional networking opportunities, and advocacy with employers who might have unconscious biases against candidates from certain backgrounds. The program's success stemmed from its deep understanding of both job market realities and the specific challenges facing different groups within the community. Services were tailored to address the needs of professional refugees whose credentials weren't recognized, women returning to work after raising children, young adults who had left school early, and older workers facing age discrimination. Each pathway required different strategies while drawing on common principles of dignity, empowerment, and systemic change. Sarah Okonkwo, the Employment Services Coordinator, had previously worked in corporate recruitment before joining the center's team. Her insider knowledge of hiring practices proved invaluable in preparing candidates for job searches while also educating employers about the untapped talent available in immigrant communities. She had developed partnerships with progressive employers who were committed to inclusive hiring practices and provided ongoing support to ensure successful workplace integration. Many of our community members have incredible skills and experiences, but they need help translating those assets into language that British employers understand, Sarah explained to King Charles as they reviewed success stories from the employment program. At the same time, we work with employers to recognize how their hiring practices might inadvertently screen out qualified candidates from different cultural backgrounds. The housing advocacy and support services addressed one of the most pressing challenges facing community members. East London's rapid gentrification had created a housing crisis that disproportionately affected low-income families and recent immigrants. The center's housing team provided tenant advocacy, assistance with housing applications, and education about housing rights while also advocating for policy changes that would preserve affordable housing options. The housing program had achieved remarkable success in preventing evictions and helping families access better housing conditions. Their approach combined individual case advocacy with broader community organizing efforts that gave residents a collective voice in neighborhood development decisions. The program demonstrated how individual support services could be combined with structural change efforts to address both immediate needs and underlying systemic problems. The community organizing and civic engagement programs represented perhaps the center's most transformative work. Rather than positioning community members as clients receiving services, these programs supported them in becoming advocates for change in their own communities. Participants learned about British political systems, developed public speaking and organizing skills, and worked on campaigns addressing issues they had identified as priorities. The civic engagement program had already produced significant victories. Community members had successfully advocated for improved bus service to connect their neighborhood with employment centers, secured funding for traffic safety improvements around local schools, and influenced council decisions about development projects that would have displaced long-term residents. These achievements built confidence while demonstrating that immigrant communities could be powerful voices in local democracy. Queen Camilla participated in a community meeting where residents were discussing strategies for addressing the closure of a local library branch due to budget cuts. The meeting was conducted in 3 languages with simultaneous translation, ensuring that all community members could participate fully regardless of their English proficiency. The sophisticated analysis and strategic thinking demonstrated by participants challenged stereotypes about immigrant communities while highlighting the democratic potential unleashed when people have appropriate support for civic participation. The cultural preservation and celebration programs honored the rich traditions that community members brought from their countries of origin while building bridges across different cultural groups. The center hosted regular cultural events, maintained a community kitchen where families could prepare traditional foods, and offered classes where community members taught each other traditional crafts, music, and dance forms. These programs served multiple purposes beyond cultural celebration. They provided opportunities for elders to share knowledge with younger generations, created income opportunities for skilled artisans, and attracted visitors from other parts of London who wanted to learn about different cultures. The cultural programs also built pride and confidence among community members while challenging mainstream narratives that positioned cultural diversity as a problem rather than an asset. The intergenerational programs proved particularly powerful in building community cohesion. Older immigrants shared their experiences of adaptation and resilience with younger families, while children and teenagers helped elders navigate technology and contemporary cultural references. These relationships created informal support networks that extended far beyond formal programming while honoring the wisdom and contributions of all community members. As the evening continued, both King Charles and Queen Camilla recognized that the center represented a comprehensive model for community development that addressed individual needs while building collective capacity for positive change. The integration of services allowed complex challenges to be addressed holistically while the emphasis on empowerment and advocacy created sustainable improvements that would benefit the community long-term. The center's impact extended far beyond its immediate participants. Graduates of various programs had started their own businesses, won election to local councils, pursued higher education, and launched new community initiatives in other neighborhoods. The ripple effects created expanding networks of positive change that demonstrated how investment in community infrastructure could generate returns that multiplied over time. The financial sustainability model reflected innovative thinking about funding community organizations. While the center received grants and government contracts, they had also developed fee-for-service programs that generated revenue while extending their impact. They provided cultural competency training for other organizations, consultation services for policy development, and research partnerships with universities studying community integration models. As the royal visit concluded with an evening reception, both visitors reflected on the profound stories they had encountered throughout the day. From the grassroots community organizing at the first center through the creative youth development at the hub to the comprehensive integration services at their final stop, they had witnessed an ecosystem of community support that honored human dignity while producing measurable improvements in people's life outcomes. The evening reception brought together participants from all 3 organizations along with local political leaders, funders, and community partners. The conversations were animated and hopeful, reflecting the energy that emerged when people felt genuinely supported in pursuing their aspirations while contributing to their community's well-being. King Charles addressed the gathering with evident emotion, reflecting on the day's experiences and their implications for his understanding of effective community development. Queen Camilla spoke about the inspiration she had drawn from meeting individuals who had transformed personal challenges into community assets while maintaining their cultural identities and values. But, perhaps the most powerful moment came when community members presented the royal couple with a collaborative artwork created by participants from all three organizations. The piece incorporated elements representing different cultures and experiences while creating a unified vision of community strength and mutual support. The artwork would be displayed at Buckingham Palace, but copies would remain in each community center as reminders of the day when their work received royal recognition and the broader visibility that recognition would bring to their ongoing efforts. As their convoy departed through streets now illuminated by evening lights, both King Charles and Queen Camilla carried with them not just memories of inspiring programs and remarkable individuals, but a deeper understanding of how communities could nurture human potential when they combined high expectations with flexible support, individual empowerment with collective action, and respect for cultural diversity with shared commitment to mutual flourishing. The lessons learned during their day in East London would influence their future advocacy and support for community organizations across Britain and beyond.